Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel Hireable Coder, and in this video I'm going to share the tips of how does the Spring Boot container work internally, because the Spring Boot container, or for that matter Spring framework, does a lot of magic, but we need to understand what is going under the hood in order to use this magical container to our benefit. So what we need to understand is, what is this inversion of control? Well, normally in object-oriented programming, if we want to instantiate any class, if we want to create an object of the class, we use the new operator. Like I have given an example here. If we want to create an instance of an employee controller, we would do it like this. But have you seen in the Spring Boot code that we have done, that we have created any object with a new operator? No, because in a typical Spring Boot or in a typical Spring application, we do not create object, we do not instantiate object. Object instantiation is the responsibility of object instantiation is given to the Spring framework, or is given to the Spring container. So that is why it is known as inversion of control approach. The control is inverted, or the control is given from the developer to the Spring container. Why? Because if the Spring container is in charge of instantiating my objects on my behalf, on the developer's behalf, then Spring container will also be able to manage the life cycle of the object and will be able to do a lot of things on the object which I do not need to do. So that is the main reason of this inversion of control approach, and that is why you will see that in Spring Boot or in any Spring application, we rarely do a new operator. We do not create objects ourselves. Rather, we use some special annotations and indicate to the Spring container, to the Spring Boot, that this classes should be instantiated by you, while we will do the business logic, while we will use those objects to perform the business logic. Okay. So before we proceed, let me quickly tell you one thing, that if you like my video explanation, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and please also view my other videos and provide your candid feedback, because if you view my other videos and share it with your friends and others, then it would actually give me more motivation to produce quality videos. So this is how we can think of the Spring Boot dependency injection mechanism or the Spring container. So the Spring container is something which is actually responsible for instantiating those objects which we indicate to them. So we as developer need to indicate in special ways that we want Spring Boot to take control of the important objects. And what does it mean by taking control of the object? It means that Spring Boot will instantiate the objects and will also destroy the objects when I shut down the server, and will be responsible for their life cycle. So normally in a Spring Boot application, we have the controller, we have the service layer, and we have the DAO layer. So normally all these objects are instantiated and managed by the Spring container. So what is the developer responsibility versus the Spring Boot responsibility? So our responsibility as a developer is to indicate Spring Boot to which classes we want the Spring Boot to manage. Like we use some special annotations in Spring Boot, like we use @service annotation on a service layer class, or @component annotation on any class which we want Spring Boot to instantiate, or even @rest controller annotation on the controller class. All these annotations basically tell Spring Boot that these are some classes which you need to instantiate on my behalf and manage their life cycle. Because if Spring Boot manages the life cycle, say for example of REST controller, what the Spring Boot will do is, whenever an HTTP request will come to that specific endpoint, so Spring Boot knows then to forward to which specific REST controller. So here is an example how the Spring Boot annotations work and how the Spring Boot dependency injection work. See, this is the controller layer class, and within the controller layer class we are having a service layer class within the controller layer, because from the controller we will dispatch control to the service layer. But we have never instantiated the service layer. We have never done profile service equal to new profile service, because if we do it like this, then the Spring controller, then the Spring container will actually instantiate the profile service, and then it will inject, or it will embed that profile service within the controller layer. So when I have declared profile service, you will see that I have declared profile service with a @service annotation on top of it. So then Spring Boot actually instantiates the profile service class on my behalf, and whenever I use the profile service anywhere, not only in controller but maybe in any other class, it will actually inject, or it will actually add that particular object or embed that particular object in the calling class, which is the controller class. Okay, so that's it. So that was a quick explanation of the inversion of control approach and how Spring Boot or the Spring container actually manages the objects and the object's lifetime or life cycle on our behalf. I hope you got the sense of it, and thanks for your patient listening. And again, if you like my explanation and video, please go ahead and also watch my other videos and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends, because that's going to motivate me to produce quality videos. Thank you very much.